Have you ever had those strange moments in life where something happens and it almost feels like the universe is winking at you? Like you keep seeing the same number over and over again. 1111 on the clock, 222 on license plates, or the same word showing up in conversations, books, even songs. Some people brush it off as coincidence. But what if it isn't just random? What if those are signs that something you've been asking for, something you've been desiring deep down, is already on its way? See, a lot of us think manifestation is just about wanting something and then waiting for it to drop into our laps. But in my own experience, it's more like tuning into a frequency. Imagine your favorite radio station. You can't hear it unless you tune your dial to the exact frequency it's broadcasting on. The signs from the universe are like those little hints telling you, hey, you're getting closer to the right channel. Stay here. Don't turn the dial. I remember when I first started to take manifestation seriously, I wasn't looking for signs. In fact, I didn't even believe in them. I thought, if I can't see it, it's not real. But then I noticed how often little patterns started showing up at the exact moment I needed encouragement. Like, I'd be thinking about starting a business and suddenly I'd overhear two strangers talking about the same industry I was considering. Or I'd be debating whether to take a risk and then I'd see a quote or a line in a book that said exactly what I needed to hear. Almost word for word. And you know what? That wasn't just luck. That was alignment. The truth is, your mind is constantly filtering billions of pieces of information every second, but it only lets in the things that match what you're focusing on. Psychologists call this the reticular activating system. Spiritually, people call it divine timing, synchronicity, or guidance from the universe. I just call it paying attention. Because once you decide what you want, and you start putting your energy there, suddenly your brain starts to notice everything connected to it. That's why when you buy a new car, you start seeing it everywhere. It didn't just appear, your awareness tuned in. And when it comes to manifestation, awareness is everything. Now, I don't want you to think this is about superstition. I'm not saying that if you see a butterfly, it magically means money is coming tomorrow. No. What I'm saying is, the universe speaks in patterns. And those patterns show up when your inner world and outer world are starting to line up. The signs aren't the result. They're the reassurance. They're like mile markers on the road that say, keep driving, you're going the right way. The first time I started treating signs that way, my whole mindset shifted. Instead of doubting whether my manifestation was working, I began to look at those synchronicities as proof. Proof that my energy was moving. Proof that I was already in the process. And when you start to see life like that, something incredible happens. You stop stressing so much about the outcome, and you start trusting the process. You realize that you're not alone in this. You're in collaboration with something bigger, something that responds when you show up with clarity and belief. And here's the promise of today's talk. I'm going to share with you how to recognize those manifestation signs, how to understand them, and most importantly, how not to miss them. Because so many people get the signs, but they ignore them, doubt them, or overthink them. And when you do that, it's like turning the dial away from the very frequency that was bringing your desire closer. I want to help you stop missing those signals and start using them as the encouragement you need to keep going. So, if you've ever wondered whether the universe is actually communicating with you, if you've ever felt that little nudge that maybe life is trying to tell you something, stay with me. Because by the end of this, you'll not only know what those signs look like, but you'll also understand why they show up and how to respond when they do. And once you know how to respond, that's when manifestation becomes real, not just a wish, but a practice. You know what's fascinating? Once you open yourself to the idea that the universe actually speaks, you start noticing it everywhere. And the first layer of this is synchronicity. Synchronicity is when two or more events happen at just the right time, in a way that feels too meaningful to be pure chance. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, described it as meaningful coincidences. But here's the thing. What most people call coincidence is actually your internal world aligning with the external world. Think about this. Your subconscious holds all your deepest beliefs, fears, and desires. And your subconscious doesn't speak in words, it speaks in images, feelings, and patterns. So when you start thinking about something with enough emotion, your subconscious tunes into that frequency, and suddenly your awareness pulls in matching signals. That's why people who constantly think negative thoughts always see negative outcomes. They're tuned to that channel. But people who are expecting blessings often notice little reminders that blessings are on their way. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine was in a really difficult place financially. She had been praying for a breakthrough, but kept feeling stuck. One day, she noticed the word abundance popping up everywhere. In a podcast, on a billboard, even in the caption of a random Instagram post. At first, she thought it was silly, but she took it as a sign to shift her perspective. Within weeks, she got invited to a collaboration that opened a new stream of income. Now, was the universe literally dropping money from the sky? No. But the signs prepared her to expect abundance, and that expectation made her take aligned actions instead of acting out of fear. This is the secret. The signs don't create the result. They prepare your mind for it, and your mind is the key that unlocks everything else. If you ignore the signs, you keep doubting yourself, you keep sabotaging, and you never move forward. Numbers are another powerful way the universe speaks. Have you noticed how certain numbers repeat for you? Some people call them angel numbers. 111 often signals new beginnings. 222 is about alignment and patience. 555 usually means big changes are coming. But let's look at this scientifically for a moment. Numbers are frequencies. Each number carries a vibration. That's not mysticism, it's physics. Just like sound is measured in frequency, numbers and patterns also carry resonance. When your subconscious is in tune with something, you start noticing those repeating numbers as confirmation. It's your awareness saying, hey, you're matching the vibration of what you asked for. Stay here. Now let's talk about symbols. Sometimes the universe uses things you personally associate meaning with. For example, maybe you always connect butterflies with transformation. So when you're about to make a huge change in your life and suddenly butterflies start showing up on murals, in conversations, or even literally flying around you, that's the universe speaking your personal language. To someone else, it might mean nothing. But to you, it's everything. That's why manifestation is so personal. The signs are tailor-made for your journey, based on what your subconscious understands. Here's the part most people miss. These signs aren't meant to make you passive. They're meant to invite you to take action. Imagine a GPS system. When you see a road sign that says, next turn 2 miles, you don't just smile and sit there. You prepare to take the turn. The universe works the same way. If you've been asking for love and suddenly you keep noticing couples everywhere, that's not just a sign to wish harder. It's a nudge to open yourself, to stop hiding, to put yourself in situations where love can find you. And it's not just about external results either. Sometimes the signs are guiding you inward. You might be asking for clarity about your purpose, and you suddenly feel drawn to a certain book, or a stranger casually says something that resonates with your exact situation. These aren't random. They're reminders that the answers you seek are already available, if you're willing to listen. Let's make this really practical. If you want to recognize signs from the universe, you need to first set an intention. Not a vague wish like, I want to be rich someday. Be clear. Say, I want to create a business that brings in consistent income and allows me freedom. Once you set that intention, pay attention. What words, numbers, opportunities, or nudges keep showing up? Second, trust the feeling. You'll know when a sign hits you. It feels different, like it's highlighted just for you. Third, respond. Take action aligned with the sign. Don't just sit back and wait for magic. The universe collaborates with movers, not with standers. For me, this principle changed everything in business. There were times when I was about to quit a project, and then I'd suddenly get 3 messages from different people asking about the exact thing I was working on. That was my sign. It gave me the courage to keep pushing, and those projects eventually turned into significant streams of income. Had I ignored the signs, I would have walked away too soon. Another time, when I was in the middle of deep personal struggles, I started noticing verses from the Bible showing up in the most random places. Not because I was searching for them, but because I needed them. That alignment between what was happening inside me and what was showing up outside me created an unshakable confidence. I'm not walking this path alone. And that's one of the most important truths about manifestation signs. They're not just about getting stuff. They're about reminding you of the relationship between you and the universe, or God, or whatever name you give the source of life. And here's something that might challenge your thinking. Not all signs feel good. Sometimes the universe sends signs in the form of resistance, closed doors, or repeated struggles. At first you think, why is this happening? But then you realize those are redirection signs. Just like a detour on the road, annoying in the moment, but saving you from a crash ahead. If you only see signs as good feelings, you'll miss the guidance in the hard lessons too. At the end of the day, the signs are already there. The real question is, are you aware enough to notice them? And if you do notice them, will you trust them enough to act? Because manifestation isn't about controlling the universe, it's about partnering with it. Before I go deeper into the signs of manifestation, I want to pause and make something clear. When I say universe, I don't mean God. For me, the universe is not the creator, it is creation. God is the creator. Genesis starts with, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's the foundation. The universe, as we experience it, is simply the container God built for human beings to live, grow, and be tested in. And this creation operates on 3 planes: time, space, and matter. That's why Genesis is so perfect. In the beginning, that's time. God created the heaven, that's space. And the earth, that's matter. Time, space, and matter. Together, they form the fabric of experience. Without these 3, nothing can exist in the physical sense. Every manifestation you are praying for or working toward must pass through these planes before it shows up in your life. Now here's where the test comes in. Before something becomes matter, before it manifests physically, you will be tested in the realm of time and space. This is what I mean when I say the universe tests you. It's not that the universe has some personal agenda against you, but because it is creation itself, it is designed with boundaries, laws, and resistance. Think about it. Even a seed has to spend time underground before it breaks through the soil. That time is a test. The soil around it is the space. It's the environment that either nurtures it or suffocates it. And only after it survives, both does it break through as matter, a living tree. Your goals, dreams, and manifestations work exactly the same way. Let's break it down. Time is the waiting period. Whenever you set an intention, you're basically planting a seed in the soil of the universe. And right after you plant it, you don't immediately see results. This is where most people fail. They pray for something, they visualize it, they even feel excited. But when nothing happens in a week or a month, they say, see? It doesn't work. They give up before the seed even has a chance to sprout. The test of time is about patience. Can you stay consistent even when you don't see results yet? Then comes space. Space is the environment. Sometimes the universe rearranges things in your life before your manifestation can enter. You meet people, lose jobs, or find yourself pushed into uncomfortable situations. That's not punishment. It's preparation. Space has to be cleared for the new thing to exist. If your life is cluttered with toxic relationships, limiting beliefs, or habits that contradict what you want, there's no room for your manifestation to land. That's why sometimes the test looks like chaos. It's simply creation making space. And once you endure time and space, matter finally shows up. That's when you can touch it, see it, and live it. But let me tell you something honest. Most people never reach this stage because they fail the test of the universe in the earlier planes. They either quit too soon in the time test, or they resist the clearing of space and cling to the old. I'll give you a personal example. There was a time in my business when I felt like everything was falling apart. Deals were collapsing, partnerships were breaking, and I felt stuck. At first, I thought it was failure. But looking back, I see it was simply space being cleared. Those partnerships were not aligned with the vision I had prayed for. And the delay? That was time testing if I was truly committed or just casually interested. When I stayed through both, the opportunities that came later were 10 times better and actually aligned with who I was becoming. This is why I say manifestation is not just about wishing. It's about aligning with the Creator's design for how the universe works. You don't get to bypass time, you don't get to ignore space, and you don't get to complain when resistance shows up. The tests are not to destroy you, but to shape you. Here's another angle. Think about gold. Raw gold isn't valuable until it's refined. And the refining process? Fire. Extreme heat. That's the test. And once it passes through, the impurities are gone, and what remains is pure shining gold. The universe is like that furnace. It tests you with waiting, with discomfort, with obstacles. Not because you're unworthy, but because your raw form needs refinement before you can handle the weight of what you're asking for. Some people pray for wealth, but can't even manage a small budget. Some pray for relationships, but can't even love themselves. Some pray for opportunities, but can't stay disciplined with the little responsibilities they already have. So what happens? The universe tests them. Time delays the breakthrough until they grow. Space shakes up their environment until they let go of the things holding them back. Only then can matter, the manifestation, arrive. And here's the deeper truth. The universe is not random. It operates on order. Just like gravity doesn't stop working because you don't believe in it, the laws of time, space, and matter don't stop working just because you don't notice them. If you understand this, you stop feeling like a victim of circumstances. You realize everything happening around you is part of the test before manifestation. So the next time you set an intention or pray for something and life suddenly feels harder, don't panic. That's not a sign to give up. That's the test of time and space. The waiting, the clearing. And if you stay aligned, if you don't let the delay make you doubt, if you don't let the clearing scare you into clinging to the old, then matter will show up. What you asked for will manifest physically because it passed through all three planes. And for me, understanding this completely shifted how I approach manifestation. I don't just look for signs and get excited. I also prepare for the test. I remind myself, if God created time, space, and matter, then every dream has to honor that order. And if I can pass the test of patience and trust, then I know I'm ready for the manifestation when it arrives. Before we end this, I want to tell you a story about a child who saw a dream. This boy wasn't the oldest in his family. In fact, he was younger, and that made it harder for his older brothers to respect him. But he carried something special. One night, he dreamed a dream so powerful it shook him. In that dream, he saw symbols that showed he would one day rise, that his life would not stay ordinary. The dream painted a picture of leadership, of influence, of being lifted higher than those around him. The boy, excited and innocent, shared his dream with his family, but instead of celebrating, they mocked him. They laughed. Some even became jealous, bitter, and angry. "Who do you think you are?" they asked. "Do you think you'll rule over us? Do you think you're better than us?" That was the beginning of his test. You see, the universe often gives you signs of what is to come, but right after the sign, the test begins. And this boy learned that early. His brothers despised him so much that one day, when he went out to meet them, they decided to betray him. They threw him into a pit. Can you imagine that? You're full of hope, carrying a dream of greatness, and suddenly the people closest to you strip you down and abandon you. That was the test of space. His environment rejected him, and he had to learn to survive in isolation. But the story doesn't end there. He was sold as a slave to strangers. Overnight, he went from being the favored child of his father to being property in a foreign land. Everything was ripped from him. His home, his comfort, his security. Yet even there, something inside him refused to die. He chose to keep his character, to keep doing what was right, even when nobody was watching. He learned that manifestation doesn't come instantly. It takes time, and in that time, you are being shaped. Years passed. He served faithfully, and for a while, it seemed like things were getting better. He rose in responsibility, became trusted, and gained influence again. But just when it looked like his dream was turning real, another test came. He was falsely accused of something he didn't do, and because of that, he was thrown into prison. Now imagine that. You do everything right, you keep your integrity, and instead of being rewarded, you're punished. That was the test of time. Could he hold on to the dream when everything around him screamed that it was impossible? Could he believe in the vision when his current reality was the exact opposite? Prison years are long years, silent years. Nobody clapping for you, nobody celebrating you, no signs of hope. But in those hidden years, he developed the inner strength, wisdom, and humility needed for the dream he once saw. This is how the universe tests us, by stripping away the applause, by forcing us into seasons where only faith and persistence carry us forward. Then the turning point came. From prison, he was called to interpret dreams for powerful people, and his gift, what he carried all along, made room for him. In a single day, he was lifted from the dungeon to the palace. The same boy who once saw himself rising was now sitting in the position he had dreamed about. The vision he saw as a child had manifested into matter. But it didn't bypass the test of time and space. Only then, after surviving betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and prison, did the dream come to life. And now let me reveal to you. This boy was Joseph, the son of Jacob. His story is one of the most powerful manifestations in history. But here's the key. The dream didn't come true overnight. He received a sign early on, but before it became reality, the universe creation itself tested him. Time tested him through waiting. Space tested him through betrayals, false accusations, and being placed in the wrong environments. But once he endured matter, the manifestation showed up. He became second in command in Egypt, saving nations in a time of famine. Why am I telling you this? Because Joseph's story is the same story of manifestation signs from the universe. The signs you see, a dream, a coincidence, a sudden alignment, are real, but the universe will always test you before it manifests physically. You will be betrayed, you will be delayed, you will be misunderstood. You may even be punished unfairly. And yet, these are not signs that your dream is dead. They are signs that you are in the middle of the test. Joseph shows us that what you frequently see becomes your frequency. His dream stayed alive in him. Even when the pit, the slavery, and the prison screamed otherwise, he kept aligning his being with what he saw. And eventually it became reality. So when I talk about manifestation signs from the universe, I'm not talking about some random mystical force. I'm talking about the pattern of how God's creation operates. First comes the vision, the sign. Then comes the test of time and space. And finally, the manifestation in matter. The question for you is simple. Will you hold on long enough? Will you trust through betrayal, through waiting, through silence, through false accusations, until the dream finally breaks through? Because if you do, you'll see that those signs were never lying. They were preparing you for the reality that was already on its way.